No, I think the discussant, they go down the first row, and in this session, this Walid Bukhari is not coming, so we nominated Emperor Jacques Impens that is going to have the final decision. So myself and Rudy Weiner will help Jacques into the final decision, according the winner, and Nasser Sakran from Israel and Phil Schauer from USA will be the gladiators. So I please, Jacques, do you want to say something, Jacques?
Thank you.
I invite Rudy to start for the first topic. We identified 4 topics, if I don't go wrong. And the first speaker is Nasser Sakran, who is going to defend OAGB.
Nasser, you are here?
I am here.
I will just remind what we have in 2011.
5 minutes?
Yeah, we have in 2011 the same debate. Ellen Whitcroft, Michel Suter against.
I will do my best.
And hopefully we have some news. Yeah?
I have 5 minutes for each topic. Okay? Thank you again. This is my disclosure. This is my case mix, and in the first topic it was hiatal hernia and GERD. I will start with sleep pass. That is very important for me that you see clearly here that after 10 years, 36% of the patients after Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, they need PPIs. Barrett esophagus, it's 3 patients. And GERD symptoms worsening postoperatively, I know it's not a large number, but it's again that we can find after Roux-en-Y gastric bypass GERD. I want to go about Genko. He have a multi-center prostate study. This is 10 years follow-up, and you see clearly here that the Roux-en-Y and OAGB, I want to talk about OAGB and sleep. Barrett 0 after both. Grade C esophagitis 0, it's the same, or 0 after both. Chetan Parmar, a systematic review of more than 12,000 patients, and you see clearly that the GERD after OAGB rate is 2%, and the remission of GERD after OAGB is about 70 or 80%. It's about 82%. The RCT, this is one of the RCTs from Exandaros. It's a randomized control study that included 80 patients, and it was equal for each. And the OAGB had less operative time, fewer complications. Post-procedure had comparable favorable effect in reduced GERD. And this is the conclude that they have. What about GERD and hiatal hernia? I agree. Kirmansari from Iran, he has published a very nice paper. And of course, hiatal hernia may be a risk factor for GERD. Hiatal hernia seems to be an important factor for the novel GERD after OAGB. And we need to repairing the hiatal hernia. If I summarize my 5 minutes, OAGB can be theoretically induced chronic bile reflux. The nature of GERD, acid or biliary, it's remain unclear. OAGB can be a surgical option for GERD. I talk about acid reflux. Of course, the systematic review, we see that very nice results. GERD following OAGB not involve the esophagus in the vast majority of the published series. Thank you.
I get 15 minutes.
So, we're going just a contrast for Roux-en-Y gastric bypass Phil Schauer.
Okay. Luigi, don't I get 15 minutes? That's 15.
But maybe the audience, you can have a spontaneously applause, yeah, if somebody is.
My first question is to Caesar. Caesar, is this a fight to the death? Yeah. Okay, because that'll affect my approach, yeah. Okay. It's unfair I have such a worthy opponent, Nasser, yeah. But this will be a deadly fight, okay. Well, I thought I had 15 minutes, but I'll try to go through this quickly. Oh, okay. Can I put it all together?
Yeah.
Let me put it all together, okay? Because all these outcomes, are together. These are my disclosures. I personally do probably 65, 70% Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. The sleeve makes up the majority of the rest, and probably 5 to 10% other operations. So these are the most common operations in the United States today, and the OAGB is not commonly done in the United States for a variety of reasons. But this is the operation we're talking about. And the concerns with this procedure, and it's been around for 20 years, and many of these concerns are not answered yet. The concerns are the way the operation is constructed. It's a longer, larger gastric pouch, and with direct connection to the biliopancreatic outflow. And so the concern is bile gastritis, bile esophagitis, gastroesophageal reflux disease. After all, that's a fairly large pouch with a fairly large amount of parietal cell mass. There's a concern about esophageal cancer, although it's quite rare, especially with bile esophagitis, which can be a cancer-producing pathology. The issue about marginal ulcers is a concern, and then malnutrition because of the longer BP limb and the greater extent of malnutrition. These are the concerns, and let me just share with you the data. This is the most recent large meta-analysis. 8 trials combined together, almost 1,000 patients, comparing the OAGB and the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. Notice that there's a variety of ways that biliopancreatic limb is measured, anywhere from 200, but in some cases, in one study, up to 350 centimeters. The starting BMI was about the same, 49.50, and this goes back almost 15 years in terms of the development of these particular studies. So let's look at the key outcomes. Change in terms of body weight at 5 years, really no difference in body weight change. With OAGB, mean BMI was 24. With the gastric bypass, mean BMI was 25, but the bypass patient started out with a higher BMI. So no difference in weight loss. With the meta-analysis, a slight benefit with early complications, with a barely significant p-value of 0.04. Long-term complications, no difference between the procedures, at least the complications that were measured. Many important complications were not measured. Postoperative diabetes remission, no difference between the procedures in this meta-analysis. Postoperative hypertension, no difference between the procedures. Postoperative hyperlipidemia, slight benefit. It's questionable whether that is clinically significant, but it was a measurable difference favoring the OAGB. Now in this study, there was no difference in GERD. And now these studies do not use your classic mechanisms for carefully assessing GERD, which endoscopy or some other objective measure such as pH testing. This was clinical, and they saw no difference here. Okay, and then the OAGB, to no surprise, is a slightly shorter operation, about 40 minutes less, and that could have economic benefit and maybe even some benefit to patients. Okay, so and to summarize this big meta-analysis, in terms of efficacy, both in terms of short-term and long-term, about the same weight loss overall, and in terms of diabetes, hypertension, the same, slight benefit for dyslipidemia. GERD is the same, but I'll show you data that contradicts that in a minute. and possibly a little bit shorter operating time. But in safety, in terms of what was measured, they were about the same, short-term and long-term. But the things that were not adequately measured, bile gastritis, bile reflux, the rare occurrence of esophageal cancer, marginal ulcers, and most importantly, these studies did not adequately measure nutritional deficiencies, which have to be done in a prospective fashion with laboratory data. So we don't have that information from this meta-analysis. Now, this is a smaller study, but it's a randomized controlled trial comparing the two procedures in all those key mechanisms. And here's the summary. This was just published a few years ago, and I think the 5-year follow-up has been presented but not published, and I have some data to share with that too. So here again, at 2-year follow-up, the weight loss is about the same. There's no big surprise there. But the serious adverse events actually were almost double for the OAGB compared to the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. And what made up the difference primarily was nutritional complications related to the malabsorption effect of that procedure. So we have to carefully consider that issue. And then a follow-up on this trial with 5-year data, which was just presented at this meeting. When you look at the GERD rate at 5 years is more than double for the OAGB compared to the gastric bypass, both in terms of clinical GERD as well as use of PPI agents, okay? So, and then the final assessment is this operation has been around for 20 years. It represents, and this is the IFSO Global Registry Report from 2023, 500,000 cases performed last year, and the OAG represents only 4%, whereas the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass is 30% of all the operations. So I think patients and surgeons have already voted. So in conclusion, both operations are probably equivalent in terms of weight loss and comorbidity improvement, but the OAGB is inferior in terms of the long-term safety profile, especially with GERD as well as nutritional deficiencies. I rest my case.
Thank you very much. Maybe we should change a little bit the program or the system, because Manuela sent an email to the discutants that we have focused on 4 topics. But Philip just covered now all the topics in one presentation. So I will make a proposal that Nasser also will cover all his presentation. And then we will discuss separate these 4 topics. Which is better, or yeah, the Roux-en-Y or one anastomosis bypass in respect to GERD, to weight regain, to diabetes, and number 4 is revisional surgery.
Yeah,
okay?
Exactly.
But the emperor agree?
Okay, you can. Sakran 2 is the second topic for me. Yeah. I want to talk about now the weight loss and weight regain. I will start with this paper that from Wang, it's he compared OAGB versus Roux-en-Y meta-analysis, and you see clearly that they conclude the OAGB seemed to be a simpler procedure with better weight reduction effect, comparable result with Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. Carandina, it's a new paper, and you see 15 years and 10 years, the BMI is very nice, and the excess weight loss after 15 years after OAGB is better than Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. This paper you see from Al Khalifa, 15 years experience with OAGB comparison with other procedure. I don't want to talk about sleeve. We have here Roux-en-Y versus OAGB, and they conclude that OAGB is a simple procedure, effective, durable procedure with non-inferior or better result than Other commonly performed procedure, Roux-en-Y, long-term follow-up OAGB also had a lower revision rate than the other two procedures. This paper from Jammu, again, we see clearly that the excess weight loss, diabetes after one anastomosis gastric had a better results. I have here, I think, 5 papers, and all the 5 papers, they conclude that the OAGB in weight was lost better and weight regain, it's more happened after Roux-en-Y. You can see the paper that the weight regain after Roux-en-Y, it's about 25%, but you see some publication, it's between 15, 20. Maybe the reason that the OAGB is more assertive than restrictive, maybe this is the reason that we have OAGB have better results. And when I summarize the second topic, Roux-en-Y present weight regain, my friends, you don't forget that. The OAGB is superior operation. Roux-en-Y failure is due both anatomically and technical circumstances. I think the OAGB better because he is more malabsorptive than restrictive, and that's the reason that our patients have weight loss, more weight loss, and less insufficiency of weight regain. Thank you. This is the second topic. You can move to the third. Sakran 3. You're bleeding. Yeah, thank you.
The lions are coming in.
Okay, I will start with this systematic, again, review and meta-analysis. You see this is more than 16 systemic review, a study compared OAGB versus band, 6 compared OAGB versus sleeve, and 5 compared OAGB versus low-lying gastric bypass. It's clearly here, short operative time, better weight loss, and better remission of diabetes mellitus. Another paper that compare Roux-en-Y with OAGB, it's from Widgely, and you see clearly again that the metabolic syndrome, it's still about 14% after Roux-en-Y and 5% after one anastomosis gastric bypass. Another paper from Nawaf Al-Khalifa. I want only to talk about diabetes. You see that the remission rate after OAGB 10 years, it was 77%. It's very nice, but when we compare to OAGB, to Roux-en-Y, you see that it's only 62, and this again, the diabetes control is our OAGB is superior, and it's clearly. GIA published now before 2 to 3 years, again, systematic review and meta-analysis. It's 360 versus 360 again, and you can see that the present meta-analysis demonstrates the superiority of OAGB compared with Roux-en-Y in terms of weight loss and diabetes remission. And if I summarize my third topic, again, the OAGB, of course, and Roux-en-Y share the same mechanism of diabetes mellitus, both induce long-term diabetes remission, but the most important benefit of the OAGB over Roux-en-Y were better glycemic control and higher diabetes remission rate. Of course, more evidence about RCTs as it's needed. Thank you. This is the third. Now, Sakran 4 is the last topic. We have today more than 17 to 18% of our procedure are revisional surgery. It's very important to take what's the revisional surgery, what's better for our patient. I start with Hani, and of course, we hear Hani he talked about a revisional surgery of Roux-en-Y versus one anastomosis after sleeves. And you see that he said both OAGB and Roux-en-Y groups show significant BMI reduction after revision surgery. The weight loss effects of both groups were almost equal. Another review, systematic review meta-analysis, you see clearly here the present analysis suggests that OAGB has better total weight loss after revisional surgery. Another paper, again, it's from Poplon that you see clearly the OAGB versus Roux-en-Y. I want to talk after 36 months, the BMI you see better in after OAGB, total wasted again, and he had more than about 500 patients. OAGB is more effective and remedy for insufficient weight loss and weight regain after restrictive surgery. Again, I have 3 systematic review of Chetan Parmar, Velotti, and Dimitrios, and all this paper present review meta-analysis the best currently available evidence and suggest the superiority of OAGB compared to Roux-en-Y gastric bypass in terms of excess weight loss and diabetes mellitus. If I conclude my 4th topic, OAGB, I think, is better and it's good alternative, shorter operative time, simpler, safer surgery, less risk of leaks and bleeding, fewer site of anatomic leaks, fewer site of internal hernias. I don't want to talk about that because we're not that our topic. Shorter learning curve, ease and reversibility to revision, and of course, it's equivalent or even superior result in terms of weight loss and community results. This, when I summarize you see that here, the learning curve after OAGB is less, weight loss is better, weight regain, it's more in Roux-en-Y, malnutrition. I agree with my friend, I feel that after OAGB you have more nutrition, but internal hernia, candy cane, dumping, it's more and more, and GE leaks, gastrointestinal and leaks, we have more in Roux-en-Y gastric bypasses. Easy, short, and cumulative resolution. And I want to say, I win or I lost, always respect my friend. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we're going to the 4 topics, I will just ask you general, if somebody believes that the Roux-en-Y is over OAGB, the better procedure, he can give applause and maybe you give your finger. If somebody believes that the OAGB is the best procedure in general over Roux-en-Y, he can also give applause. That's pro Roux-en-Y.
Can you translate exactly?
No, if somebody is in favor that the general Roux-en-Y is a better procedure, he can give applause. And somebody says, okay, in general, if no applause, then we go to topic. So, who is in favor? In general, Roux-en-Y is the best procedure, better procedure.
In general, who is in favor that Roux-en-Y in general is better than OAGB? Who is in favor of this?
Yeah, right.
No, applause.
And Jacques, your finger?
No.
And who believes that one anastomosis gastric bypass is in general the best procedure? Okay, thank you very much. This is the starting point. Now we're going to the different topics, and from the panelist groups, for OAGB, we will start to the topic. Gerd, who would like to start in with the arguments? We have here the...
Yeah, now Mario, Gerard, Billy, Kular, go. Prepare the 2 microphones.
Yes. Now we stop the cozy course. Now it becomes bloody. I mean, Phil, this was nice what you showed. I prepared. I must support my gladiator, Nasser. I will support you. We will now do the final deadly step to Phil. You will see. Can I have 3 slides? Of course. No, but we have to have evidence, not just blah, blah, blah. And look, when we were talking about GERD, you see here an RCT. OAGB reduces the total acid exposure time. Phil said about measuring. That's what this RCT did. Gastroscopy, pH metry, manometry, everything. Showing that acid exposure time is reduced by Roux-en-Y gastric bypass as much as by OAGB. Okay, we can discuss everything in the long term, but I'll give you one more thing about about hernia. Let's think about, and by the way, we did the same in Vienna. You can see again, for 24 hours pH metry. These are the data, that's fact. OAGB reduces the acid exposure time from 28 down to 10, highly significant. And when you think, the biggest advantage maybe for the OAGB is you have no mesenteric defect. And these are the 10 years data from the RCT from Scandinavia. You see, even when you close it, after 10 years, you have 7.8% small bowel obstruction. And Stenberg himself said that 2/3 out of these small bowel obstruction come from the jejunostomy. In other words, you can add a 5% revision rate for the OAGB, and then you are, after 10 years, at the same level as Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, and we don't have that. So in my opinion, from that point of view, clear hands down for OAGB. Phil, this was my final deadly step.
These are strong arguments, So, Michel.
Well, the president is cheating because we were not allowed to have slides.
Who said that?
But, you know, when the gladiators are cheating, sometimes they have a secret weapon that is hidden. But if you look at there's a reason why the pH is, could be altered, because Eldredge did biliary scans on OAGB, and he found out that 70% of them have bile in the stomach, while in the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, they only had 5%.
He did it in symptomatic patients.
We kept hearing from OAGB surgeon, I never see bile. There's never any bile. But this is really clear evidence with science and a test that bile is present in the stomach all the time. Now, the Haute Autorité de Santé in France, who looked at the data, because they were doing a lot of single anastomosis gastric bypass versus Roux-en-Y. In October 2019, they decided in France, which is doing, by the way, 3 times more bariatric surgery per capita of obese person than in the United States. They decided to ban the operation because they said the country is not going to pay for twice as many complications. So this is, and I presented this to the ASMBS, but you know, for them, the French report was not readable, but actually, the whole country was shut down, and it has been like that, and the 5-year data was presented by Phil Schauer. So, a whole country banned the operation, and bile is always there.
Yeah, short answer, or not? Then Ellen will follow.
Concerning the bile reflux, these were symptomatic patients, and it's true, there is always bile there. But show me the data on carcinoma. You're well aware that the loop gastric bypass in the 80s has been performed in the US, several thousand patients, and if we would see a whole bunch of carcinomas popping up after 30, 40 years, they would already have been there. But I fully agree in a certain aspect that bile reflux in the long term will play a role. I do both operations, both have their benefits and limitations, but in my opinion, in certain indications, OAGB is clearly better. And according to Phil, he showed us a lot of data, but when you see the slides, he showed several times the name Rui Tovar with the biggest RCT that was retracted. I mean, this is simply not true. And he was telling us about 200 to 350 centimeter of PP limb. all those surgeons who do a lot of OAGB, they would never go for such a long BP limb because they know very well that this will produce a lot of nutritional and other problems in the long term. So I think the majority of us doing OAGB tend to go now for shorter BP limb length, around 150 centimeters.
Alan.
I always have a hard time when people do an operation and they continue to change the goalpost. So we start with a limb length of this, we go to a limb length of that, we go to another limb length of this, and then let's compare it. Oh no, let's not compare it. Let's just say, this is what we do now and it's better. I have a hard time with that. Because if you look at the data and you want to compare the weights, okay, it's not inferior. I agree with that. But the nutritional issues, and I used to do biliopancreatic diversions, and I had a lot of nutritional issues, and I don't do malabsorptive operations anymore. I do a laparoscopic gastric bypass. I've done thousands of those laparoscopic gastric bypasses. We weren't supposed to have slides. Some of our colleagues cheated and had slides. I don't see in my patients that kind of revision rate in gastric bypass. They don't have reflux disease. If you do the operation correctly, you shouldn't have reflux disease in a gastric bypass. On the other hand, I think that it's been proven that both the sleeve and the modification with an anastomosis are reflexogenic with the other operations. So limb lengths are important. You need to avoid malnutrition, and I think that's what makes it a non-equal type of operation. We need to look at then the current version of the operation over a longer period of time before we say there's no GERD. And actually, the revision weight loss between the two, I think, has been shown to be not significantly different.
Okay. First of all, I will ask your operator, we need more arguments pro and contra in this field of GERD. What do you believe? Or your decision is clear?
Are you happy with GERD?
I think there was sufficient evidence. So go this way or this way?
Has somebody new important arguments pro and contra? Mario? Or? Oui?
Thank you so much. Very, very quick comments. I appreciate very much the presentation of Dr. Schauer, but I can confirm I'm involved in the IFSO registry committee, and the OAGB worldwide rate has risen very much in these last years. So it's no longer 4.3%, it's much higher. This is the first point. The second one is, I saw your conclusion about the 5-year results of the Omega trial, okay? About on one side we had 45% reflux with the OAGB, and on the other 24% of reflux with the Roux-en-Y. First comment, we don't know how this reflux has been defined. We should remember that, for example, grade A or B esophagitis is not a conclusive diagnosis of GERD, and this has been reported by gastroenterologists in the Lyon consensus, and also if you go to see the first publication of the Omega trials at 2 years, we have a lot of grade A esophagitis following OAGB, but just one case of grade C esophagitis. And what about the 24% of reflux we find in Roux-en-Y gastric bypass? Because if I perform this surgery not to have reflux, and in the end I have reflux at 24%, it is an issue, I believe. And also to answer to Dr. Whitgrove, it's of evidence that when you change your techniques, there's probably some things may be improved, but I've seen a lot of changes also in the Roux-en-Y technique. I've seen anticolic, retrocolic, antigastric, retrogastric, 50 centimeters, 75 centimeters BP limb. So I've seen a lot of changes in this technique along the years. And with regards to diabetes, my final comment is that if we go to see the Omega trial, probably is the most critical article, most critical study published against the OAGB, we see that at 2 years, the remission rate of diabetes is significantly higher for OAGB.
Sorry, just talking about only a GERD.
Hiatal hernia and GERD is the first topic.
Only just
Kelvin,
this.
your comment on this before.
Kelvin, strong arguments pro and contra. Helmut,
Yeah. The topic is only hiatal hernia and GERD? Yeah. All right. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
OAGB and Roux-en-Y.
We can talk about the trials, the data, all of this all day long. If you look at some older operations, the vertical banded gastroplasty, and the experience in Brazil with a banded gastric bypass, and even the adjustable gastric band in Australia, we would still be doing these operations today because the data, the reports all look great. The question is, why did they go away? Furthermore, why did Jacques Himpens ask me about the Nissen bypass so long ago that Nilton Kawahara and I were working on the Nissen over the gastric bypass? Admittedly, there's some reflex for the gastric bypass, but he was more interested in using this on his OAGBs. So our judge has already recognized the significant reflux problem in OAGB enough to do an extra operation around that. And we must ponder the question of why would the most intelligent person in the room with the most experience be concerned? I rest my case.
Kelvin, don't insult Caesar. It could be hazardous to your health.
And my topic is, because I'm getting confused with all the jumping, what am I supposed to focus on, GERD?
Just a GERD.
Okay, GERD. So I'm just a small town surgeon, and I depend on all of these, giants, some of them my mentors, to guide me with all these papers. The papers are just there for us to read, and I was always told to figure it out for myself in my patients. And so GERD, what's the biggest group of GERD patients I get? They're sleeve patients. What's missing in the Omega trial? Somebody tell me what the average common channel length was in the Omega trial. That's not there. There's stuff missing. And where there's something missing, there's more missing. What was the average definition of GERD in the Omega trial? It's not there. There is no definition. It could be, I feel I have heartburn. Put that one down for GERD. So we went ahead and found out for ourselves. And we've done about 80 OAGBs since November, and we're following them. We have probably the highest level of GERD quality of life assessments. Just last night, I was doing a remote telehealth on an OAGB patient. Do you have any GERD? No, surprisingly not. It's all gone. So there is something between what's put on the papers and reality. And so these small town community surgeons, we go check it on our own. We do it on our own. We should collect our data. We should publish our data. So we will. I'm doing endoscopies on all my patients. At most I see is grade A, which I'm told now, according to Leon's consensus, is not even GERD. So the question of what's going on with this is going to be answered in the practices of the small town surgeons, because I do them all. I do SADI, I do OAGB, I was taught gastric bypass by Kelvin Higa, and if I saw something wrong with the direction this operation is going with respect to GERD, I wouldn't do it. There's no benefit to me to do an operation that's worse than the arsenal of what I always have. So it stays in the private practice hands. It stays in the hands that those people that can't write papers with the degree that some of our experts can. And we look for the weaknesses and we find out for ourselves. And so that's my summary.
So maybe last, Dr. Kula, if you have some short new arguments, not just new.
Yeah, the new argument here, which already has become a kind of consensus, we already have seen the data showing that the Roux-en-Y numbers in US are already coming down drastically, and at present, it's no more than about 30 to 35% of the total number of surgeries performed. But looking back like 10 years, it was something else. So I agree with Dr. Calvin Higa, Professor Higa, that in reality, what you see happening, I mean, we can see the data, publications, and all that, but we know that Roux-en-Y numbers are going down, and OAGB at present is the fastest growing surgery. And talking about GERD, we know that obese patients already have pre-existing GERD to the tune of 30 to 50% somewhere. And we are talking about fixing the GERD on these obese patients. Let's do a simple surgery first, OAGB, and let's believe the data which has been published, longest series, Professor Mazzella, Robert Rutledge, myself, and Dr. Chevalier. See, we have done like more than 7,000. And believe me, we are running a small private practice in India. Look at the Indian scenario. Majority of the gastric bypass, majority of the bypass procedures in India at present is OAGB. We understand malnutrition is a matter of debate, but at present, bile reflux, cancer, as already checked by my friend Chetan Parmar, a global survey recently published in 2022, only 170 cancers reported through all bariatric surgeries, only 5 from OAGB, and that too, only 2 in the gastric pouch, and that too very recent, within 1 or 2 years, most likely missed in the preoperative endoscopy. So I would say at present we only have one bypass procedure which is working well in hand, and that is the OAGB, which is going to come as a rescue procedure to the Roux-en-Y. May it be because of GERD or revision procedures or diabetes or whatever we say. Thank you.
So, okay, so we will give it to our operator to summarize and make a decision. Maybe just to remind, in 2011, the same discussion, then the end point was that the Roux-en-Y is the best anti-reflux procedure that we have in 2011. No, it changed.
We need a rebuttal.
Jacques?
They had the last two. They had the last two speakers. We need a rebuttal. They can't have the last two speakers.
No, there's no another speaker.
They had the last two speakers.
No, we need to, Jacques has got to decide now.
No, they had the last two speakers.
I'm confused now.
Everybody was speaking. Yeah, everybody was speaking here.
Yeah, but they had the last two in a row. That's not fair. That's not fair. Everybody knows that's not fair. Excuse me, that's not fair.
They won't.
They can't. We have to have a rebuttal. A very short rebuttal. I want to just say to Helmuth Billy, 9 months is bullshit. If you look at all the studies, at 1 year, the reflux is the same. At 5 years, it goes like this. So that's number one. Nope, you don't get a rebuttal.
Well, I'm bigger than you now.
Number two, actually, the statistics are that in the United States, the Roux-en-Y numbers are going up. Why? Because it's been shown the sleeve's not as effective, and there's a lot of complications from the sleeve. So I wanted to just correct those two things.
Well, so 9 months, I'll just say on 9 months, we start somewhere, and there's going to be one paper, probably mine, that goes out to 5 years. I'll be happy to publish it year after year after year, but it will make it out there, and then we'll have that discussion in 5 years.
I wanted to make some rebuttal. Talking about the Omega trial or limb lengths. I mean, limb lengths, we're only talking about limb lengths on their side. What about limb lengths on our side? Because we can change limb lengths too. We know that if you increase the BP limb, you get, in some trials, better resolution of type 2 diabetes and weight loss. So we can also increase the limb lengths and get maybe better results than the mini gastric bypass. So that's one thing to think about. Now, my prediction, because of the bile, if we look at the data from Recklinghausen in Germany, where they compared the CD and the mini gastric bypass, they got better results of weight loss And because of the pylorus, the bile doesn't get too much in the stomach. There was much less diarrhea, much less upper GI effect and reoperation for digestive problems. There was much less in the CD. But that's another debate because we're talking about Roux-en-Y versus. My prediction is for the bile problem that you encounter is you're going to require a mini Nissen. Now, the next thing we're going to hear is the mini Nissen gastric bypass.
Okay.
But in fact, Michel, there are people that are now doing the OAGB and Nissen mini gastric bypass as a primary operation in case of hiatal hernia. It's happening.
I've done that.
I think we are coming to...
Primary, Jacques.
Kelvin already mentioned it. And
you as a rescue, not as a primary.
Even in primary cases where there was...
I think we are coming to a mutual agreement, like my friend Dr. Michel Garnier rightly said, that they can increase the BP limb. Okay, so we go on increasing the BP limb and make the Roux-en-Y limb 0. And this is what is mini gastric bypass. Because the total length available on the other side is the same. So the best what we can use for getting better resolutions on diabetes, hyperlipidemia, weight loss is BP limb. Thank you.
Let me say one word. We are discussing of hiatal hernia and GERD. So I know that there are people that are exploring the possibility that due to the weight loss and maybe due to the association of hiatal hernia repair, OAGB is going to give some result in terms of reflux. I would be skeptical, but people investigate, and it's nice to investigate. But what I do not accept is that you are going to do the operation, the OAGB, and you are going to do a primary Nissen repair because you think that operation is potentially causing reflux. I understand that you say, I may not know and I am exploring, but not since the beginning, because if we know that Roux-en-Y is a better operation, I don't understand this kind of position. You see what I mean? Can't believe you tell me something, Jacques. Why you get to do OAGB and Nissen fundoplication?
Yes.
You do not
Luigi.
straight
Don't extrapolate.
I'm sorry, but no one of us is doing Nissen OAGB. We are talking about OAGB, not about Nissen OAGB. We can do anything. We can do bari clip, we can put bands, we can do for whatever we want. But we are talking about OAGB. No one of us do it.
No, the idea was patients who had significant reflux could be treated, in my opinion, but I'm talking about 15 years ago, could be treated by OAGB, or mini gastric bypass, like we called it in those days, and complement that with a sling, a so-called mini Nissen, or whatever you want to call it. And I think that it sounded okay, but the problem is that it may sound okay, but it's not okay. Because the problem is, it's not, to begin, a real Nissen. It's a sling that we do, and a sling has a tendency, especially when there's weight loss, has a tendency to shrink and then to create dysphagia. And so all those patients, maybe not all of them, a lot of them had to be taken back to the OR to take down that pseudo-Nissen. So we did do it, and I must admit, even I'm the emperor, it was a mistake.
So as emperor now, Jacques, you've got to judge the patient with hiatal hernia and GERD going toward the bypass operation. Which operation would you propose?
I want to wash my hands and finish.
But you're Caesar.
You have to pour.
Now he's
That's real nobility with mineral water.
Second topic, come on.
So we will finish this. But for any solution for your finger, wash in water. But give it a sign. Okay. Diabetes, the next topic. So, we had the arguments and now pro and contra. We're starting with the Roux-en-Y group in this. Wait. Who will start from the panelists?
But now, I mean, the topic would be weight regain, isn't it?
Oh, sorry, weight regain.
So, so weight regain, I think we got quite explored.
We covered that.
We covered that. So I think if there is any comment from one comment from one anastomosis to say from mini bypass to say that is more effective because the weight the biliary length it can be increased in the Roux-en-Y as in the OAGB. So I think honestly I don't think there is a consistent difference.
I think there is quite a good...
There is any not data, any physiopathological evidence that omega should work better than Roux-en-Y at the same biliopancreatic limb?
Yeah, I think this is a mutual agreement that increasing the BP limb would give us better weight loss and
for both the operations.
For both operations, that's beyond doubt. I mean, we are scientific people. We should understand that. But the good thing is when we look at what to do with those patients who gain weight, there are very few solutions when you have operated done in Roux-en-Y. But with MGB, there are options.
Exclude this topic.
Yeah.
So
for weight regain.
From the OAGB, they agree that increasing the biliopancreatic will give the same weight loss result. OAGB and Roux-en-Y people agree.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think from this point of view, what do you want to do, Jacques? Do you want to wash again? At the end of this session, you're going to have a shower.
I'm running out of water.
Okay, so Jacques is washing again. The other topic we are going to address now is diabetes.
We already covered it.
So effective on diabetes. So my perplexity is the resolution of diabetes is proportional to the amount of, to the length of biliopancreatic limb or not? What omega people says.
Thank you for your omega people, it's funny. Anyway, well, of course, by lengthening the BP limb, of course, you get less absorption, possibly a better effect on diabetes. Well, I was supposed to discuss about diabetes, and current evidence is published, recently published the systematic review. They all agree about giving some advantage to the OAGB, especially in the long term, and also in revisional surgery. And as was I saying before, even in the Omega trial at 2 years, the results are better for the OAGB. That's my comment.
But let me put it another way. I mean, Michel, Alan, Phil, and Kelvin are the one who taught me Roux-en-Y. But I have one problem. And I had this patient sent from gastroenterologists with specific request to do mini because they think it's more effective. If you explore the patient, and the patient has no hiatal hernia, no reflux, that for me can be a point to choose Roux-en-Y. In a patient that has diabetes, has no reflux, no hernia, why shouldn't I do a mini that at the end is one anastomosis? Kelvin, answer to me. I mean, I want an answer because I asked myself this and I couldn't find an answer. I must say I did an omega.
Okay, yeah, Michelle said it well. And there's some data to support a longer BP limb may give you better diabetes control. You can do that with a Roux-en-Y. Okay.
No, but I'm not saying if we decide that the operations are similarly effective on weight loss and diabetes according to the length of the biliopancreatic limb, in a patient that has no GERD, no hiatal hernia, why should I do a Roux-en-Y? Please, Kelvin.
Well, it's the development later.
Let me
of
take this
reflux.
one.
But this is a potential.
Let me take this one for you.
May develop later.
Yeah, it's developed later.
The GERD.
We got it.
Go ahead.
It's because, yes, if you're talking about 1,000 patients, you can make generalizations. But when you talk about a single patient, and you give them a Roux-Y or a 1 anastomosis, and they have a suboptimal response, which one is it easier to revise to get a better metabolic response? With the Roux-Y, you just turn it into a type 1 distalization. With a 1 anastomosis, you either have to take down that anastomosis, make the stomach smaller, redo the gastrojejunostomy, or turn it into a Roux-Y.
But you are introducing the third point, revision. We are still in the point of diabetes.
But
tell me something.
Mr. Chair.
Why somebody is coming in a consulting room without GERD and hiatal hernia, is I have diabetes, a BMI 40 or 45. Why should a surgeon do a Roux-Y?
Because you don't know that you're going to hit a home run the first time every time. And you don't know what that response, and you cannot predict that response. You can try to, depending on severity of diabetes, length of insulin.
So
all
you are
that sort of
questioning the effect of omega on diabetes
But
in the long run.
Yeah, the subject is, how do you choose the first operation to take care of the patient the rest of their life? That's the thing.
Well, I think in the long term, it's the bile. The bile we don't know, and the bile we now establish scientifically, it's there. So there's a reason why the Mason operation was changed from a gastrojejunostomy to a Roux-Y, and that was specifically in part because of the bile. Now the surgeons who are doing SASI, there's a sleeve and there's a single anastomosis as well. They seem to also encounter the same problem as them, meaning that the bile is now in the stomach and they start to see more bile gastritis, they see more bile esophagitis, and we hear more and more transformation of the loop into a Roux-Y.
Jacques, any comment from your side?
I must say that the comparison with...
For diabetes.
With the comparison
so if
with...
somebody comes to you with diabetes, without GERD, what would you do?
Well, you said that you would opt for a single anastomosis gastric bypass rather than a Roux-Y. But there's another operation where there's no anastomosis, the sleeve.
This is not the point of the discussion.
I like it.
You know, it's a good idea, but we go into in another.
But when you're using arguments, you have to be, you know.
I agree. So I think, Rudy, what do you think? We move to the last final revision. Because, Kelvin, you introduced something that is quite new for me, that revise Roux-Y is easier than revise an omega loop.
Oh, yeah. I think so.
All you agree this, Phil, Alan, you think that revising a Roux-Y is easier than revising an omega loop?
If you're revising...
Let me ask something. How many omega loop have you revised? Sorry, I don't want to be...
So I don't do... I mean, almost nobody in the United States does omega loops, right? Because
so you have no experience of revision?
Just a minute. You asked me how many have I revised?
Revised.
5. Nobody in the United States does them. I've revised 5.
And you
Doesn't
find
that tell you a little something?
And you find a difficult operation?
The people come from other places back to the United States because they've had a omega, and we're the ones that are revising them.
And did you find technically difficult operation?
Well, so you have to understand why you revise them. So what Kelvin was talking about was if you're revising it for metabolic disease and you want to get better metabolic component or weight loss, you can revise the gastric bypass easier. I agree with that. If you're
the
Roux-Y.
Easier.
Yes, for those two things. For those two things. If you're revising it for reflux, then then the omega loop is easy to revise for converting it to a gastric bypass.
You have to push the button.
If you don't have no experience of one anastomosis, how you can conclude that it's better to have revision after Roux-en-Y gastric bypass? I don't understand. I am a man that I perform a lot of Roux-en-Y gastric bypasses and a lot of OAGB, and I said to you, this is very easy to convert one anastomosis to Roux-en-Y or to other surgery than the Roux-en-Y. If you don't have experience, how
Alan,
you can
believe me, I have revised quite a few, and if it's the point of pouch trimming, easy, much easier because you have a larger stomach, a longer stomach is easy. I mean, to revise a Roux-en-Y, a proper Roux-en-Y is quite complicated.
No.
Why would you
To revise an omega loop is much easier. Pouch trimming is easier. You want to resect the anastomosis is easier. You want to increase the length, much easier. You want to convert to Roux-en-Y, much easier. In my experience, I have experienced a lot of Roux-en-Y, but also some OAGB, it seems much easier. But what is your comment, Rudy?
No, let me just explain, because I think there's a misunderstanding. What Kel and I were talking about was only revising a gastric bypass for two different reasons. If you want to lengthen the biliopancreatic limb and shorten the common channel for weight loss or diabetes control, that's very easy with a gastric bypass because you just change...
Omega, you mean?
No, for the Roux-en-Y, because all you have to do is change the Y. It's a small bowel anastomosis. That's why we're both saying it's easier to convert that for that particular reason.
But revision for complications is a different thing.
That's different.
That's a different situation.
Yeah.
With 2,000 MGBs or ORGBs and the 3,500 Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, to restore to normal stomach, to normal anatomy after ORGB, extremely simple. But just prolonging your limb length, just cutting, except you have anti-reflux procedure, but just cutting, new measuring, new anastomosis. And to Roux-en-Y is also simple, it's extremely simple.
Yeah. Can I comment on that? With the dozen or so revisions of a single anastomosis gastric bypass that I have done have been primarily because of the bile reflux problem. Sure. So either they're having reflux or marginal ulcers, perhaps because of the large stomach pouch, okay? So they are revised to Roux-en-Y. Now, one would argue if they had the Roux-en-Y in the first place, they wouldn't have needed a revision. And I've heard lots of people have to revise a OAGB to a Roux-en-Y, but I've never heard anybody going from a Roux-en-Y to an OAGB. Would you ever go from a Roux-en-Y to an OAGB? You would never do that, right? Therefore, why don't we just do them all the right way the first time?
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys agree?
Can I have a small comment here about the revision thing? See, if you have a 150 centimeters Roux limb in hand, and now you want to increase the BP limb length, so first of all, you will have to take it down, because you used 150 centimeters for the Roux limb. So, and then you have closed the mesenteric defect also. So, revising a Roux-en-Y, we all know, is not as easy as revising an MGB OAGB. But yes, I think we are converging on all other points except that of the bile reflux and the long-term results of bile reflux and GERD. But if you look at the evidence, there is no strong evidence in the largest series. The reflux incidence is almost the same in both the cases, Roux-en-Y or MGB OAGB. But even if you look scientifically, Professor Toleni from Italy, he has recently done, from last 5 years, he has been onto this. He's an esophageal surgeon, and there are many publications showing that the intragastric pressures after MGB decrease significantly, and actually it is an anti-reflux procedure. And that's what we see in our results, and that's what is coming from all corners of the world. I think now it is the time to believe and understand that MGB OAGB is primarily an anti-reflux procedure. And also when it comes to hiatus hernia, the mesentery, which is not cut, actually it's a loop. It's pulling the G junction down and keeping the G junction down. So I think it will take maybe a couple of more years to understand, or maybe the insurance companies like Calvin Higa discussed with me a few years back in US, maybe when the insurance companies allow more and more MGBs, then more and more US surgeons will start doing it and start believing it. Thank you.
Mario. Short, please.
Grazie. A very quick comment to Dr. Schauer. And he told, and I agree partly, well, why should I do an OAGB if my patient is going to meet reflux? I do the first, the Roux-en-Y, and I'm sure he's not going to have reflux. First, you've shown data.
Do you agree with this?
No, for the simple reason that I can make it the opposite. I would ask to Dr. Schauer, why should I make it a Roux-en-Y having a higher rate of internal hernias or an higher risk of weight regain? Because both procedures have pros and cons, you know. So if we go to discuss about reflux, okay, but we have to consider the whole. I mean, internal hernias, diabetes remission, weight regain or weight loss, excessive weight loss, anything. Thank you.
So, Jacques, what do you think regarding revision? How many Roux-en-Y have you revised, and how many Omega Loop have you revised? Few hundred.
I think if you think in absolute numbers, I have revised more OAGBs.
More OAGB than Roux-en-Y.
Yeah, I mean, depending again.
But we cannot. But that's not the point of evaluation to say.
No, absolutely not.
But one point is important. What do you find easier to revise?
Everything is easy for me. No.
During the last, during the last sessions here, what we learned, most of the percentage of revisional surgery was presented here during this congress was data about 4%, 5% revisional. And Roux-en-Y bypass 15 and more. Where's the difference? The frequency presented at this congress was lower revisional surgery for MGB.
But revisional surgery is difficult to judge because you have to know why you are revising. And there's a myriad of reasons why you could need or think you need to revise your OAGB, for instance. So we have to do a prospective study and see what's coming out.
I think it will be extremely interesting to see what is going to happen in the United States, if he's going to start really in Canada, if they're going to start.
Can I comment on that? Okay. So the OAGB has been around for 20 years. 20 years. The OAGB people have had 20 years to show their data. 4% of the world is doing OAGB.
No, Phil, you are in Italy. The last 2022 data are unbelievable. That's the first time in the history in Italy of bariatric surgery that OAGB has overtaken Roux-en-Y. So people and patients are preferring to do OAGB versus Roux-en-Y.
But in France, it's the other way around.
In France, they cannot do Omega because they are not reimbursed. It's not fair competition. In Italy, they are equally reimbursed.
Well, they did a randomized trial.
With Mario, I remember Mario, I think that was 15 years ago, proposed to doing a course on OAGB and Rutledge coming, and there was a lot of perplexity in the university for what he was doing. But these days, after 15 years, I think we had quite enough knowledge we cannot condemn two-core Omega Loop and mini gastric bypass. I think this is my position. I still think that if you do not have any specific reason to benefit of the operation, that historically proved to be better regarding GERD and hiatal hernia, I think you may choose the other one.
Luigi, I want to ask
My balanced position. I don't know if you agree.
I want to ask our wise emperor, who has done OAGB and Roux-en-Y for more than a quarter of a century, for the reason for conversion in the OAGB and in the Roux-en-Y. Can it be that it is in one the weight regain and in the other the bile reflux?
You're a visionaire. The main reason for revision of an OAGB is, in my hands, is bile reflux, and which in some cases can be pretty severe, but in other cases there's no bile reflux whatsoever. And in Roux-en-Y, the reason for conversion of Roux-en-Y is all the other reasons that you can have, marginal ulcers, and you name it. Yeah.
The data I showed you, the measured data on acid reflux time, nobody was looking precisely at the slide. Yeah. It is true that OAGB is an anti-reflux procedure, but only for acid reflux. Yeah. So the MASTER score goes down because it only measures the acid reflux, but the non-acid reflux goes up in our institution. I do OAGB and Roux-en-Y, and I have the same problems. In the long-term run, with the OAGB, we do see a certain degree of bile reflux, and you have to counterbalance that to the internal hernia, because 5% of your Roux-en-Y gastric bypass patients, even if you close the defects, will have small bowel obstruction. This is nothing funny. So at the end of the day, you have to balance these two things in my mind.
Yeah, no, Professor Prager, I think the 5% internal hernia rate is a huge exaggeration. And I can just tell you, in our own experience, both in my previous institution in Cleveland, we had a very, very rigorous outcomes database. We closed those defects properly. We closed them extremely well with non-absorbable suture, and our internal hernia rate is well below 1%, well below 1%.
These data come from the biggest multi-center randomized controlled trial we have, with a perfect database from the SOREC. And I showed you the citation by Stenberg himself, accounting 2/3 of all small bowel obstructions coming from the jejunostomy. The overall internal hernia rate after 10 years, when you close it meticulously in their hands, was 7.8%. 7.8% by 0.66 is 5.1%. That's the data we have. Not what I believe or others do think. This is a multi-center RCT, period.
Yeah, but it's how you close the defect, Professor Prager. If you don't close it properly, if you use interrupted sutures and leave big gaps, that's actually worse than not closing it. So, and you're right, it is a potential concern for the Roux-en-Y, but we have to properly teach surgeons how to close that defect.
No, I think I just want to personally ask Professor Calvin Higa. He has reported in his 10-year follow-up of Roux-en-Y, which came at 10 years, he was following somewhere around 26% of the patients, and reported an incidence of to the tune of 16% in incisional hernia, and about 4.5 to 4.7% stricture at the G junction. And I regard him as like one of the leaders in Roux-en-Y in US. So I think we need to understand that revision rate, complication rate with Roux-en-Y is much higher than the OAGB. This is not a controversy. Yes, sir.
So you have to understand that we went through a learning curve like everyone else, like in the randomized controlled trials. And so even though we closed those hernia spaces in the beginning, the hernia rate went up to an astronomical. Yeah. When we learned to close them properly, it's well below 1%, as Phil says. Yep. So, I mean, that just tells you that no study is perfect, that we learn as we go. Even a randomized controlled trial doesn't give you all the data, and you have to understand what an RCT doesn't include when they randomize. So for us, it was a learning curve. It was very short, but we did so many cases, A lot of these patients came back very early, but it was a warning sign.
Yeah, so that's what we understand, that OAGB is a simpler procedure, learning curve is less, complications are less, and as bariatric surgery is becoming more and more common, it would be, much wiser to use or to give this tool in the hands of the newcomers, and it's easily reversible, revisable, but we need to believe the data getting published from different corners that the incidence of bile reflux and the gastritis is low, but the incidence of internal hernias and other big complications in Roux-en-Y is way more. Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of trade-off. Thank you.
Okay. I think it's time to come to a conclusion, and I will ask the audience, just by clapping your hands, what procedure you would have for yourself.
Bellissima is the president-elect, Ricardo Cohen. Please go to the microphone, Ricardo. I know that you in Brazil you do all one anastomosis, so better tell us.
Not doctor.
I do have one anastomosis.
Oh my gosh, what is this?
We do two anastomoses. What I'm impressed in this discussion, I've got nothing to add to the bypass team because I love them. All the data that comes from OAGB is a pile of retrospective and prospective studies. So mentioning a meta-analysis of prospective studies or retrospective studies doesn't make the evidence better. So a lot of bad studies makes a bad meta-analysis. And I don't know one single, it's true, I don't know one single randomized control trial, although I understand that RCTs they have drawbacks. There's no one single, besides Ruiz-Tovar, that was retracted, where OAGB has better outcomes than the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. There's another one coming this next Thursday called the RYGB trial from the Finnish, that again, the gastric bypass is better, safer, 5 years follow-up. So a lot of RCTs that repeat the same data makes a good meta-analysis. A lot of retrospective and prospective studies doesn't make any good science. And in Brazil, we still do the two anastomosis.
This is very nice. I think I appreciate this observation. But answer to me in the same case. Somebody come to you, 43, 45 BMI, no hiatal hernia, no GERD, diabetic. You are a diabetes surgeon, metabolic surgeon. You still would do a Roux-en-Y on that patient?
Yes.
Maurizio De Luca, behind you. Maurizio. Maurizio is the president-elect of the Italian Society.
No, just to say for Ricardo...
The same patient, which operation would you do?
Of course, OAGB. But not just to say to Ricardo that I am revising the literature for the third OAGB position statement IFSO, and to date we are meta-analyzing 12 RCT studies regarding OAGB. So the number at the 31st of July is 12. 12. Yeah. Oh, non-inferior, yes, of course, yes. But the number is 12, just this.
So I don't understand. You talk each other. What is Ricardo saying?
No, Ricardo said that there is, when we performs systematic review or meta-analysis on retrospective study, I agree,
okay,
of course, they have a very low value.
Okay.
But in this moment, we are revising, and we evaluated that 5 years ago, we had 4 RCT, while at the 31st of July 2023, the RCT are 12. Okay, this is what I say. Yeah. Yeah. In any case, they are not too much. I agree with Ricardo.
Thank you. Final word to our emperor.
So I think nobody in this room got any wiser with this discussion. And I wish you otherwise a good evening. And I want to thank personally Luigi for a wonderful congress. And I want to thank my colleagues for a good discussion. Thank you.
Wait a second. Wait, Luigi. We want to hear what the emperor says.
A picture with the emperor.
Yeah. Who won? Which gladiator won?
He's going for a shower, I think.
Oh, well, there you go. Shower wins. There you go. Thank you. That's what I thought. Shower wins. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Here we go. Shower wins. There we go.
And I declare closed the 26th World Congress of the International Federation. Thank you for your participation.
There are places that you go to and once is enough. And then there's Napoli.